Our bill requires issuers soliciting anyone under the age of 21 to obtain a signature of a parent, a guardian, or someone, rather, else who will take responsibility for the debt or proof that the applicant, as many are capable of doing, who are under the age of 21, that the applicant has some independent means of repayment. It prohibits increases in credit card limits unless that person who is a co-sponsor is jointly liable approves of the increase in writing. And our bill limits the kind of pre-screened offers that get so many young people into trouble. And I want to thank our colleague from New Jersey, Senator Menendez, for his leadership on this issue. It is time, Madam President, to insist that credit card companies take into account a young person's ability to repay before allowing them to take on what is all too often a lifetime worth of debt. Very little we do in our legislation will be more important than these provisions. And many of my colleagues on the Banking Committee expressed a strong interest in these provisions. And we also note, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, Madam President, but a significantly high percentage of students drop out of school because of the debt they've incurred. And a lot of it is credit card debt, not just the student loans, but the credit card debt. That is also why the final component of our bill is so critical as well. And that involves tougher penalties and enforcement. Credit card companies need to understand that if they violate the terms of an agreement with the cardholder, there are serious consequences. With this legislation, if your credit card company wrongly raises your rate, the company could pay as much as $5,000 per violation, even higher if the company is found to engage in a pattern or practice of violations. Now, my goal and our goal, Senator Shelby and mine, is not to be punitive, although I can understand why someone might want to be, given some of the practices that have gone on here over the last number of years. Rather, we need to put in place strong incentives that will encourage these industries, these companies, to act more responsibly in the first place. Every one of these provisions that I've mentioned are rooted in simple common sense. No more tricks, no more strings attached. Over and over we've heard that consumers should act responsibly when it comes to credit cards. I agree completely with that sentence. Consumers, we all need to act more responsibly. But it is time the credit card companies were held to that same standard. And also, with this legislation, they will be. So I want to thank Senator Menendez, Tester, Senators Cole on our committee, who have strongly supported the fight to protect consumers against predatory credit card practices. And Senator Carl Levin of Michigan has been a champion of credit card protections for many years as well, and generated some important ideas that are included in this bill that Senator Shelby and I are offering. For decades, our efforts have fallen on deaf ears, but not this time, Madam President. Today, with practices so brazen and so widespread, as our economy quite literally hangs in the balance, one thing is clear. This is the moment for credit card reform. Our economy will not recover, in my view, if we allow practices such as those that I'm talking about today to drive so many families deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. Americans do not deserve and cannot afford to be pushed down this economic ladder by credit card issuers any longer. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. In my view, we will never have a better opportunity to protect consumers than we do today with what we're proposing here. And this legislation, by the way, has been worked on extensively over the last number of weeks. Listened to a lot of people, including the issuers themselves, to make sure that what we're doing here is going to be fair and balanced, and yet get to the heart of the matter, and that is to cut out these excessive increases without warrant in rates and fees and penalties that I've mentioned. Madam President, 46 years ago, President John Kennedy delivered his special message to Congress on protecting consumer interests. In that quote, in that speech, he established four very simple rights. And let me quote them if I can. The right to safety, the right to be informed, the right to choose, and above all, the right to be heard, to be assured that consumer interests would receive full and sympathetic consideration in the formulation of government policy. Madam President, I cannot think of a single issue or moment where we need to act on principles articulated nearly a half a century ago and embraced by our current president and many in this chamber of both political parties. That message was clear and more urgently needed than those articulated by President Kennedy more than 4 decades ago. And so, Madam President, this afternoon I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, to stand up for American families who are already facing tremendous difficulties on a daily basis, with rising costs in energy and health care, with the difficulty of holding on to your home. All of these issues are confronting them. At the very least, having spent as much time as we have on dealing with stabilizing the financial institutions, to take out a few days in all of this debate and to stabilize American families by reducing outrageous and egregious practices that have added so many financial burdens to them, I think is long overdue. So Senator Shelby and I are proud of this substitute. I want to thank our colleagues who've helped us work on it. We look forward to the next day or so when we have a debate with amendments that may be offered to this. Some may strengthen what we've suggested. Others may try to undo what we've suggested. But we need to have a full and open debate about it, and then my hope is that by an overwhelming vote, Americans will, my fellow colleagues rather, will support this legislation. The House has already acted, and I commend them on the leadership of Barney Frank and others who chair the Financial Services Committee in that chamber. And so our intention is to follow here today with this legislation. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney deserves a great deal of credit in the House, having authored the legislation there. We think we have a good bill. We think we have a strong bill here. We think we make some improvements even on what the House has recommended.